The horrors of Palestinian detentions in Israeli prisons. An overview of Palestinian detainee in numbers. As of January 2025, Israeli prisons hold approximately 10,400 Palestinians under a variety of classifications. These include 87 women, of whom 22 are detained under administrative detention without formal charges. The detainee population also includes 320 children, 95 of whom are held without trial. Among the total, 3,376 individuals are subjected to administrative detention, a policy that permits imprisonment without formal charges for renewable 6-month periods. This controversial practice has sparked widespread criticism from human rights organizations. Additionally, 1,886 detainees are categorized as unlawful combatants, further complicating their legal standing and rights. These figures represent a stark increase from the 9,440 detainees recorded in June 2024. Notably, they exclude many Palestinians detained from Gaza during the past 15 months of conflict. Reports suggest that numerous Gaza detainees are held in military camps, often in conditions of enforced disappearance. These escalating numbers highlight a growing humanitarian and legal crisis in the region, underscoring the need for international scrutiny. Administrative detention and its human toll. The Israeli policy of administrative detention remains a focal point of contention. This system allows individuals to be imprisoned without trial, often based on undisclosed evidence. Such detention can be extended indefinitely, leading to prolonged incarceration without recourse to justice. As of January 2025, 3,376 Palestinians, including 95 children and 22 women, are held under this framework. Critics argue that this practice disproportionately affects vulnerable groups and violates basic due process rights. Human rights organizations have consistently condemned administrative detention for its opaque nature and potential for abuse. The indefinite nature of these incarcerations generates severe psychological strain, not only for the detainees, but also for their families. This policy remains a persistent source of friction between Israeli authorities and Palestinian advocacy groups, with calls for reform growing louder amid international attention. The dire conditions inside Israeli prisons. Reports from international bodies and human rights organizations paint a grim picture of life inside Israeli detention centers. Overcrowding is rampant, forcing many detainees to sleep on floors without basic necessities like mattresses or blankets. Sanitation is inadequate, with limited access to showers and functional toilets. These conditions are exacerbated by food shortages and insufficient medical care. Detainees often report delayed or denied treatment for serious health issues, further jeopardizing their well-being. Vulnerable groups, including women and children, face additional challenges. Female detainees have reported sexual harassment, threats of violence, and a lack of essential hygiene supplies. Children endure psychological trauma, with many subjected to harsh interrogations and physical abuse. These documented practices have drawn widespread condemnation as violations of international law, including the United Nations Convention Against Torture. Calls for accountability and improved conditions have become increasingly urgent as these issues persist. Torture and abuse, a disturbing reality. Palestinian detainees in Israeli custody often recount harrowing experiences of torture and abuse. Physical torture methods include beatings, electrocution, and stress positions, while psychological tactics involve sleep deprivation, sensory manipulation, and threats against family members. Reports of sexual violence, including rape and forced nudity, further underscore the severity of these abuses. Such practices are not only deeply traumatic, but also violate fundamental international human rights laws. The use of extreme measures extends to medical neglect and deliberate exposure to harmful conditions. Some detainees report being administered drugs that induce hallucinations or disorientation, compounding their suffering. These allegations highlight a pattern of systemic abuse that demands thorough investigation and immediate intervention from global human rights bodies. Deaths in custody and legal violations. Since October 2023, at least 53 Palestinian detainees have died in Israeli custody. These deaths have been attributed to a combination of torture, medical neglect, and the harsh conditions prevalent in detention facilities. Each fatality raises serious questions about the accountability mechanisms within the Israeli prison system. The treatment of detainees contravenes numerous international legal frameworks, including the United Nations Convention Against Torture and the Fourth Geneva Convention. The ongoing violations underscore the urgent need for international oversight and enforcement of legal standards to protect the rights of detainees. Human rights organizations continue to push for transparency and accountability, emphasizing that the current practices cannot go unchallenged. The psychological toll on detainees and their families. The psychological impact of detention extends far beyond the prison walls. Detainees frequently experience post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression, symptoms often exacerbated by prolonged solitary confinement and uncertainty about their release. Families of detainees face immense emotional and financial strain, with children particularly vulnerable to long-term psychological effects. The detention of a parent or sibling disrupts family dynamics and contributes to a cycle of trauma that permeates entire communities. This collective suffering reflects the broader implications of the detention policies. Addressing the psychological toll requires not only immediate support for detainees and their families, but also systemic changes to end these practices. Advocacy for mental health resources and social reintegration programs remains a critical component of broader humanitarian efforts. Monitoring efforts and international advocacy. International organizations have made significant efforts to monitor and document the treatment of Palestinian detainees. Groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch collect testimonies and publish reports highlighting abuses. These organizations also advocate for accountability through United Nations mechanisms and other international legal avenues. However, challenges persist. Restricted access to detention facilities and a lack of cooperation from Israeli authorities hinder comprehensive oversight. Despite these obstacles, continued advocacy and public awareness campaigns remain vital. The global community has a crucial role in pushing for adherence to international standards and ensuring that the rights of Palestinian detainees are upheld. Conclusion: a call for justice and reform. The situation of Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons represents a pressing human rights concern. From overcrowded and unsanitary conditions to allegations of torture and psychological abuse, the challenges are immense and multifaceted. These issues highlight the urgent need for systemic reform and international accountability. Addressing this crisis requires a coordinated effort involving local advocacy groups, international organizations, and global policymakers. By shining a light on these injustices, the international community can help pave the way for meaningful change, ensuring that the rights and dignity of all individuals are respected and protected.